Originality is a trap, and you probably aren't as original as you think or as you may want to be. And it's most likely a collective issue. I struggle with originality, my friends do, we all do from time to time. I want to share my personal story with my originality crisis and how I overcame it. Let me set the scene. It's my first year of university. It was a weird and transformative time for me. A new city, new people, and new lessons to be learned. I was a political science student and I didn't expect that philosophy was going to become my favorite subject. The philosophy course in my first year changed my life for good. It opened my consciousness up to new realms and lanes of thinking that never crossed my mind before. Because adapting to a new environment and learning to live on my own wasn't enough, I began to experience an existential/identity crisis. I began to question my likes, my dislikes, my ideals, my goals, anything that made me, me. And I guess this might be a pretty regular experience once you drastically change your environment and you sort of look into your true inner cringe. I started to critically analyze myself, and I concluded that I'm just a clump of other people's ideas and influences. This saddened me at the time. It was like realizing that I was in some sort of invisible jail as a person. No matter what I create, how I style myself, what I think about and talk about, it's just going to be echoes of things that were already created or thought about. This struggle lasted for quite a while. Up until I had a certain philosophy course about Edmund Burke, did I really change my views on originality. Edmund Burke is an 18th century philosopher who believed that society is like a long-term contract between generations. He stressed the importance of traditions and was really against radical change. He's also sometimes referred to as the father of conservatism. Now, before you okay boomer a guy from the 18th century, stick with me a little bit and I'll explain how all of this connects to breaking free from the trap of originality. Edmund Burke saw society as a deep connection stretching way back to our ancestors and to our descendants. Basically, it's like a conversation throughout time. He believed that, well, we have to honor the past lessons that we gained while also making sure that we take care of the future. It's basically a balancing act between history and setting up a decent future for our next generations. When I read about Burke's idea of this interconnected society spanning across time and space and all of humanity, I began to spiral because I thought about creativity, originality, how it related to me, and boy oh boy, it did not look pretty at all. Because I began to hit my head against the wall. Well, the metaphorical kind. And maybe the not so metaphorical kind? Huh, it's so dark. Was this the subscribe button? I think you might need to press it for me to regain consciousness. That was weird. Anyway, let's continue with the fruits of my deranged labor. There's this 12th century saying, standing on the shoulders of giants. You may have heard this phrase before, that it was said by Isaac Newton in a letter to his rival. It's basically, if I have seen further than others, it's because I stand on the shoulders of giants. And this phrase basically boils down to admitting that your creation, your discovery is because of other great thinkers before you. It's a healthy way to think, and I thought that I can apply this thinking as well. I felt that I needed to shift my perspective on myself and the things I create. Creation isn't a solo process. Even if we're creating something by ourselves, we are not truly alone. Everything we create is a sort of dialogue with great creators of the past. When we create, we have influences, and those influences were formed by prior influences. And so on. We study, credit, remix, mashup, and transform, and that just means that humans don't create in a vacuum. The process of creation, whatever the creation may be, a personal style, thoughts, essays, research, speeches, all of these are a continuation of prior human excellence. Even this video you're watching right now, it's only possible because of the things I've read, learned, listened to, experienced, whatever. I am not the first person to discuss originality or creativity, and if I were to look at this video as a race of originality, I wouldn't be able to tell you what place I'm taking in the current lap, because this is a humanity-long conversation about creativity and originality that we're having right now. And even though I'm not first in this race, even if this is a race, my creation, this video, it isn't a failure. When viewing ourselves and our creations, we shouldn't scold ourselves for not being original enough. Judging something only based on its originality is a very flawed point of view. Stating that something is great just because it's original is faulty logic. If we look at technology, the original model of any invention is usually its worst. If we look at philosophy or art, it would be pretty stupid to say that the first thought or the first painting is inherently the best. To be clear, I'm not saying we shouldn't strive to make new creations or discoveries, or that they don't exist at all. Side note, I'm not going to discuss the whole debate of are ideas created or just discovered, or if all knowledge is pre-existing or not. Have fun falling down that rabbit hole yourself. While I'm clarifying, there's a huge difference between just copying something and creating a work that's not wildly original. You can twist my prior words and justify copying, but that's not what I said, first of all, and second of all, it's missing something crucial, this train of thought: the creator's personal touch. And while a work may not be original, it may have personality to it from the artist's personal touch. And when you're looking at a creation that's lacking both personal touch and originality, then it's usually just a copy. And I know this is a slippery slope, and you can get lost in the weeds when creating. You can copy something on accident, but you can also copy something maliciously. And there's a lot of nuances in this topic, but the bottom line of what I'm saying is you shouldn't justify blatant copying just because people have been sharing ideas and borrowing ideas from each other since the dawn of time. Borrowing is okay, interpreting is okay, doing things that have already been done in your own way, that's a-okay. And I still scold myself for doing these things from time to time. But I have to remind myself that I'm just a part of a humanity-long conversation, and I never know where my creation might lead. Creation is such a personal process, and that's what I actually strive for. I try to do things that matter to me, create the way I like to see things, and in general, I strive for the personal, not the original. And that's how I overcame my personal originality crisis.